I'm a video editor who's worked with Disney and NFL, and I'm going to be jumping into some of the top podcasts of 2024 and identifying mistakes that even the top podcasts make and help you learn how you can learn from these same mistakes to help make your podcast a better podcast. Mistake number 1 is over editing.
It's very hard to know how to monetize and what will be monetizable if you're not already publishing free things where you can gather data from people.
While a lot of editing and a lot of graphics often make someone think that, yeah, this video is great, it can damage your video, especially if those actions and those editing that you're stacking on top of do not align with your brand. And that's exactly what we see in this podcast from Nicholas Cole. That was 7 seconds of the video. I've seen 4 to 5 colors. I've heard like 6 to 7 different sound effects. I've seen red, green, and yellow. Let's go to Nicholas's website. My first question is, why am I not seeing orange? That's his brand. I see a whole lot of orange here. So I would really lean into what I'm doing everywhere else online, and my podcast needs to be an extension of that. So how would I fix what's going on here? Is I would do 80% less sound effects, 80% less visuals on top. Everything that I choose to go on top needs to answer this question. Does it look and feel like me? So everything would need to be orange and need to follow this exact font and style so that I have a consistent look, so that when someone does go to my website after my podcast, it feels like me. Right now, there's no connection between the two. So mistake number 2 is the other end of the spectrum, too little editing. While being a minimal editor, someone who relies on authenticity, as we like to call it, can help you, if it leaves technical issues exposed, then it's just not being helpful. This is Cody Schneider's In the Pit podcast. And Cody is one of my favorite podcast hosts. I love his personality. He's hilarious, and he ultimately just gives you amazing opportunities to make good money. So what I found with his podcast is a lack of editing that leaves some really basic fundamental technical issues exposed.
I would say on a monthly basis across all of our clients, like we're sending 1 to 1.5 million emails a month. I think content is like...
Okay, did you see that jump right there where you can hear Cody start to talk as he's fading out and he almost talks, and then there's a hard cut. And so there's this overlapping of multiple elements stacking on top of each other. It just feels unprofessional. So let's see that again.
You could do 1 to 1.5 million emails a month. I think content is...
That, what I would do there, no, we don't need to fade out. Hard cut, bring our guest right immediately onto there, and we're good. We solved that little issue. Love this podcast, highly recommend it. Let's see what we got next. Our third mistake that we're gonna look at is perfect editing, almost. So what we see here is my actual favorite podcast, How I Write by David Perell. You know, ultimately, this is what everybody needs to copy, is what David does. It's amazing, great graphics. It's all in sync. It strengthens his brand. It's consistent in color and font. You watch this intro and you think, my goodness, it's great. So let's jump into the intro and see what we got.
Loved it. I quit. And that's actually the intro of my book. I've come across a lot of damaged writers, which are people.
Okay, right there. Did you see that?
I've come across a lot of damaged writers.
So there's a jump cut. And yes, we see that 100 times a day if you're scrolling social media, but when you have an intro as strong as David does with each of these How I Write intros, that jump cut can fracture all of your work. And the result is it can bring a viewer who's fully immersed when you're doing something at this level of quality. And you can see that, and then you can think, oh, was that a mistake? You start thinking, you get in your head as a viewer, and next thing you know, you didn't listen to 10, 15 seconds. Oh, you see another thumbnail, boom, you're gone. And it can be that easy. Again, this is not a make or break mistake, but these are the type of things I see having worked in this industry for so long. And what would I do to fix it is this shot we're looking at here, push in, which means to zoom in about 40, 50%, boom, you no longer know that this was even a cut.
I've come across a lot of damaged writers, which are people that...
And you're fixed, you're set. So let's jump on to what we see next. Now, our next mistake, number 4, is when your post-production, your video editing, doesn't meet the quality of expertise that you yourself or your brand represents. So my absolute favorite podcast is Startup Ideas Podcast with Greg Eisenberg. His podcast, you watch and you listen to it, you're gonna walk away with incredible value. Now, I do not believe that the quality of editing lives up to the quality of the content he's puts on his podcast. And I think this is just a big opportunity to have a podcast increase their editing expertise to meet the expertise of the host and the content and the guest that we're bringing on. So let's jump in here. And I'm going to play this clip that I've selected from this podcast. Tell me if you catch this.
Now, great advertising is one thing, but there are very few great ads. So anyway, here's the idea. So I think it could make...
Okay, so we've got this great idea. We fade to black, which is cool, right? We leave them hanging. But in that process, I can see a lip flap. Then when we fade back up, I can see him talking, but I can't hear him talking. It's just the lip flap. So what I would do is have a much stronger, harder fade down, and then fade back up. You would see no lip flap.
So anyway, here's the idea. So I think it could make a... So anyway, here's the idea. I think it could make a ton of money.
Little editorial techniques like this can make what's just a 10% difference, but a bunch of those little 10% along the way, and suddenly you've built up this really strong visual content that is your podcast, and it makes your brand feel stronger, it makes you feel stronger, and it builds authority and trust. Is Greg still going to build authority and trust? 100%. Could he build more? 100%. So let's move on to this next one. What do we find here? This mistake number 5 is no call to action. When you've got someone to listen to your whole podcast, they've hung out with you for 30 minutes, an hour, that's a warm lead. That's someone who's ripe and ready to take a next step, whether that's watch more content, subscribe, follow, or best yet, become a customer, become a client, purchase for something from you. So you really want to make sure that anytime you've got someone who's interested in what you offer, you make it easy for them to be a part of what you offer. So how do we do that on a podcast? We give them opportunities, we give them guidance and instruction on what the best next step is to do. That's call to action. So let's watch this clip with Kevin O'Connor, one of the top basketball analysts, and his podcast. So let's jump in and tell me what you notice.
Maybe this team is actually ready to be something different. Maybe Jimmy Butler takes the regular season seriously.
All right, cool clip. I'm fully engaged. I'm thinking, yeah, Team USA, but I'm ready to listen to more. I'm ready to follow him and jump onto his Substack. Maybe I just want to go read a related article. Maybe I want to hear this entire podcast. I got none of that from the end of this video. So what I would do is I would add a call to action that brings in whatever me as Kevin O'Connor wants my listeners to do. Is my main goal to build my newsletter? Let's tell them where to sign up for the newsletter. Do I want them to listen to this full episode? Give them a link to listen to this full episode. Here's something that I did with a recent client of mine. She's promoting a book that she wrote. So in this podcast clip, she talks about her book. And what do we do with the call to action? We promote her book at the very end. And little elements like that just provide you opportunities to grow your business, make your brand stronger through your podcast. So stick around for more of these. I want to highlight some of the ways that you podcasters and brands out there with a strong podcast can make it even better. Drop a comment. Let me know which one of these mistakes surprised you the most. Have you ever made a mistake like this in yours? Yes, I know you have. Don't lie. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe, as I'm going to keep producing this type of content to help us all make a better podcast. And if you want your podcast to look more premium, you need some help with that, reach out to us here at Cut the Pod. This is what I do, and I want to help your podcast look the part. So reach out. Talk soon.